Welcome, Kristina. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, nice to meet you.
And so I know that you're in Portugal and you have lived in several countries around the world, but just tell us a little bit about some of the benefits and challenges about living there.
So I actually had a chat before our conversation with my husband, just as a reminder, we are complaining a lot about things because obviously you're abroad and then you're just missing things that you know from other countries or from your home country. But overall, it's a really nice laid back lifestyle that we have here. So it's consistently nice weather, very pleasant. It's getting a little bit hot in summer and in Celsius, it's in the 30s, which can get uncomfortable in the city, not like in Texas. Um, but it's just beautiful weather and people are very relaxed. We have a great local expat community, which is fantastic. But I also know a few Portuguese people, which are super nice and very welcoming. So it's easy to travel to after living in London for 15 years, where it's really difficult to get to and from London and it's just an absolute nightmare to like from getting from the airport into the city. Here it's just super easy. You just fly into Lisbon, you take a local cab like to our place and come to Reek. It's about 10 minutes by taxi, which is like that is such a luxury, and it's just really easy and uncomplicated to get everywhere, or you just go by car. So all of these things that the city offers a lot. So if you, I mean, generally Portugal is a fantastic country to explore. So we've traveled around quite a bit. But if we just look at Lisbon, it's just so much offering in terms of like events. It's a smaller city, but there's just always something going on. And a lot of free events, some paid events, a lot of great restaurants. There's always something new to check out. So I love it here. So it's really a lot of the things that I was looking for that I found here, like great community and yeah, great lifestyle overall.
That's fantastic. And so you are in Lisbon, and there is a very popular, fairly large expat community there.
Yes.
What would maybe be two or three other places that would have at least a reasonable size expat community for maybe people that don't quite want to be in such a big city?
So you can either go just a little bit outside Lisbon. There's Cascais, which is a little town. It's near the sea. We've lived there for the first year, and it's lovely. So you can just go whatever in your lunch break down to the sea. It's not as much happening as Lisbon, but you still have Lisbon at your doorstep. If you want to go a little bit further, then about 4 hours drive to the north, you have Porto, which is a great city as well. Or you go down to the Algarve, and that's more like a beach outdoorsy lifestyle that you can get there. And that's several communities. I'm not super familiar with where exactly to go. Faro is definitely one, but it's more like dotted around the coast, the places that you can go. So, but you will find experts everywhere. So if you're lazy like us, don't learn Portuguese. You get along with English really well. Yeah.
Excellent. And that's great. So because Portuguese also is not an easy language to learn, from my understanding.
No.
I'm still working on my Spanish, and it should be better than what it is. But Portuguese is also very different. So it is good to know that people can still get by with English, and then of course picking up some Portuguese along the way is also good.
It's definitely an advantage. I mean, it's not more than 2 years that we live here. I can hardly order coffee in Portuguese, which is a bit embarrassing. But whenever I try to say something in Portuguese, it's as if you flick a switch. Everyone is just suddenly they just love it that you try it. And even
Mm.
if it doesn't make any sense, the reason that you tried it is just open doors everywhere. So whenever I can, I try to, even if it's just saying thank you or do you have or something like that. Yeah. But yeah, one
Absolutely.
day I will definitely learn it.
And that's great. And that's just, becoming part of the community and fitting in when you're living somewhere, is to try and be involved with the language and the customs and the festivals, and getting
Yes.
used
Yeah.
to things being closed in the afternoons or several holidays, or whichever it may be. And those are things that I've become used to in Barcelona. is
Mm.
the closing of things in the afternoon, and they have quite a few holidays in Spain. So
Yeah, similar here. And there also some shops close over lunch. So I think it's a very similar lifestyle, which isn't surprising considering as
yes.
close as we are. Yeah?
Absolutely. And so what about real estate prices? Now, I know that this is a tough one because
Mm,
like every place, real estate can vary and every country has properties that's millions of dollars and some that's, very, very inexpensive, but not
mm.
necessarily the nicest or the safest. So what kind of average range do you think for something that's maybe 2 or 3 bedroom, quite comfortable, nice, that people would be looking at in a bit of a ballpark?
I think in Lisbon, maybe between 400 and 500,000 for a two-bedroom, a renovated one. You of course get something much cheaper but then you have to renovate it, which can be a bit of a challenge. There's a real shortage of tradesmen here, and then if you find one, it's very hit and miss the quality they provide. So our flat was renovated when we bought it, probably not to the standard we are used to. A lot of things that after a year that are already no longer working or so that's definitely something to consider. But yeah, so that's what you can get in Lisbon. If you're up to live somewhere in the countryside a little bit further out, it dramatically drops. So you could probably get a whole house for 100K, yes, and land with it. Also with some restrictions that I think you're only allowed to build on the grounds where the current house is if you want to change anything. So you're not allowed to build more. So even if you have a big piece of land, then you can only build where the house is. Um,
That's interesting. I
yeah,
I I didn't even know that. So
yeah,
that's an important thing to know because if somebody finds a house and land and they say, "Oh, I'll, expand, make it bigger or rebuild," that they are stuck basically with that size of
yes.
home.
Definitely do your research. Generally, if you're purchasing, so we bought the house, we had a good help. This was actually a really excellent service that we got. We worked with a local mortgage broker, and she helped us with the whole process, which was just it's such an overwhelming process. Oh my God! I mean, the admin to get to the house. I think we've been about 15 people at the lawyer's office when the whole transition took place. Everything in Portuguese, like whatever 30 pages of legal documents being read in Portuguese. So it was really good to have. So we had a lawyer with us and a mortgage broker to have them with us, support us during that process because we were just basically sitting there like the deer caught in the light, thinking, "Oh my God, what's happening?" Yeah. So and they can help you with stuff like this. So this is where I would definitely get help and do your research so that you don't have any bad surprises.
Absolutely. And, like a lot of places is you want to make sure that you are having that legal help because there unfortunately are situations, even with just renting, that
Mm,
I know that people have attempted to rent a place that is not theirs to rent, or the place does not exist. So
mm,
you want to definitely make sure you have your feet on the ground, you're actually physically seeing, touching, and then you have that realtor broker help you to make sure
yes.
that this is available to rent. So using a property management company to go through that, or the lawyers to make sure because there is an unfortunate situation that there are scams that happen and all over the
Yeah.
world.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. You don't want to waste any money. And I think the lawyer is a good starting point.
Mm.
Maybe get some recommendations. This is where I got most of my information is through Facebook groups where people were in similar situations, similar like your Facebook group, which I didn't know at the time, which would have been really helpful. But there's a few also targeting US citizens moving to Portugal, where you get like so much information and then also local recommendation to people. This is how we found our mortgage broker.
Absolutely, and that's great. So another thing that is a big concern for a lot of people is healthcare. What is the
Yeah.
healthcare like in Portugal?
So it's not as bad as you might expect. Actually, they have some very modern hospitals that provide good service, but it can be a little bit hit and miss. So we try to get private health insurance. We had one that we wanted to go with that sounded good with in terms of coverage, but then and it was just really bad. So it was a very long process, it was about half a year almost, where they kept checking our documents, in particular mine. So I'm in my 50s, and then they said, okay, they take me, but they're excluding like the key areas of female health. So no breast cancer, uterus cancer, and I mean, then of course we didn't take that insurance. So we went with a different one, which isn't as great, and they make it a bit difficult. So if you go to if you have any doctor's appointments that are within their network, it will already be deducted, and you only pay the difference. That's the easy one. If there's anything outside that, for example, I had physiotherapy, I wanted to claim that, it's listed in the insurance, and it's a real headache to get that money back. So almost to the point where you just think, come on, I mean, if I just look at how much my hourly rate is compared to what I'm claiming back, I just leave it. So that's a bit disappointing, but otherwise, I think the health system is good. So you don't have to worry about that you don't get the care that you deserve. Might be some waiting times
Mm.
for a bit of for the experts or specialists where you want to go to.
Well, that's good to know. I mean,
Yeah,
I don't think there's any perfect healthcare system in the world really,
probably
because I
not.
know, in the United States, they pay a lot for their health care. I'm originally from Canada, and people say, "Oh, you have free health care." I'm like, "Well, taxes pay for it, but we have very, very long waits for a lot of things." So it
Mm,
is kind of balancing that out, and not everything is free or included within our health care. So but
yeah.
that's good to know that it is good care, to watch, check out the different options available for that private care, which providers there are, and then to make that decision that's best suited for what that individual person's needs are.
Yeah, so with everything, just really carefully read the documentation, because we could have easily just skipped that part, pay
Mm.
quite a premium fee for that, and then it's the key things that you insure yourself for are not covered. The one that we just, in case you're interested in how much we pay, so we now pay as a couple 230 euros per month, which is a good price. Yeah, so
Mhm.
it's much lower than other insurances that we had in other countries.
No, that is a very reasonable price for a couple,
Yeah,
definitely.
yeah, absolutely.
And so some of the other costs of living, so there's the healthcare. What about things like utilities? I'll say even eating out, which we know
Mm.
eating out can vary a lot. But if we think of like utilities, internet, kind of those monthly expenses, on average, how much do they run?
No, no, exactly. The utilities I actually had it up here, so but from what I remember is that so overall it's roughly including mortgage, our costs are in the over 3,000 per month, but that's a big chunk. About 2,000 is going for everything house related, but not utilities, and the rest of 1,500 is for our food and our bills, which is
Okay.
I think is actually okay. So there's not that we just like really checking what we're ordering when we. So I online order the food, and we get good quality foods, and the fridge is always full. That's about half of the cost, and the rest is utilities and other expenses.
Right. And again, that especially when it comes to food and entertainment and eating out, that will vary so much for people depending
Absolutely.
upon what they like to do and how much that they're out. Now, a question that I'm not sure if you'll know, but what about importing pets? Do you know if it's easy or difficult, or ones that just are not allowed at all?
I know that you can import them. We don't have pets, but we have friends who brought their pets. I had two, I don't know, from Sweden, they brought their dogs. One was really easy. They just took them with them on the plane. The other one had to wait half a year. Hers was from South Africa, but I think it was more something in South Africa that caused that delay. And the other ones were from Florida, and for them it was straightforward just to take the pets. I think you have to have the usual vaccinations, and they are in the hold, and then you're just getting reunited in Portugal with your pets. But it sounded fairly easy, yeah.
Right. Yeah, and that is something for people to look into for more of the exotic pets. I know in Spain there are some rules about, I can't remember what type of bird it is now offhand, but it's a common pet
Mm.
in North America, but in Spain it's not allowed as a pet. It's like a
Oh,
budgie
yeah,
parakeet, something like
yeah.
that. I can't remember. And then of course when we get into um, iguanas and snakes, that's a completely other
Okay,
situation that
I
people
have
like. To me those aren't pets, but some people have them as pets, so
yeah,
okay.
I have no idea how it is if you want to take your
Yeah,
snake
well, I
with
was
you.
in Montenegro. I met a couple who wanted to bring in their pets, and they had a pet pot-belly pig, and
Mm.
Montenegro said no, a pig is not a pet. And they
Oh,
had to rehome it. And they were quite sad about that because they
yeah, I
weren't
can
allowed to
imagine. I
bring
think
it
that's
in.
cute. No, I have no idea. Yeah, but
Yeah.
it's a very generally here in Portugal, dogs is a big topic.
Hmm.
There are a lot of dogs. You can totally see the expat dogs and the local dogs. The expat dogs are treated like a family member. The local dogs not so much. There's a lot of dogs that are living in small flats or on balconies and hardly see daylight. You have to register your pet when you're here, so it has, I don't know if it's a microchip that they get, but they have to be registered, and I think you pay a small fee for them. And
Right.
but it's like, yeah, the city is full. Yeah.
Hmm. So they're very welcoming to that, and having that registration and chipping is very common also in North America
Mm.
and many other countries. So it is a quite common thing to have. Now, you are originally from Europe, but you have also moved around quite a bit. Can you
Mm.
share some information on potentially different types of visas to get to Portugal and if they allow second citizenships?
Ooh, I don't know exactly about the citizenship. So we got my husband is Australian, so he came here with a spouse visa for me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if you would want to become a citizen, then I think you have to learn the language. There's
Yes.
some there's some quite tough course that you have to do, and our friends just did that. There's about, I think that it was like 3 months that they had to go every night to learn Portuguese, pass a test, and then you can apply for citizenship. But it sounded like after that it's fairly simple. You know? Not sure if you can do this without support through, for example, an immigration lawyer. Um, but yeah, so I don't know, because for me, obviously, the door is open. I don't need another passport. I have a German passport, and that's great. But
Right.
we might maybe in a few years' time look at this for my husband so that he can get a Portuguese passport. But I think it's fairly easy. And this is information that you get on the forums, like in they're very generous. People are very generous in sharing their experience. And so when we got his visa, we had legal help, which I would not recommend. So that one was a waste of money. It just overcomplicated things. And we heard from other people who did it without. It was actually really easy. So I think for the initial visa application, because you do this in the local juntas, they're called here. If you just have someone who speaks the language, that should be enough, because they're
Right.
very helpful otherwise. You don't really need
And
to
and
go
just to
up with a
clarify,
lawyer.
that would be for the spousal
That,
visa
yeah, for
because
spousal or
you have.
yeah. There's another visa, so I'm not. It's,
Well, there's
I mean, it's
many
only two
visas.
years
There's many.
ago.
I just don't want people to think
Uh,
that, oh, I can just show up and apply for a
no, no,
visa and
no, no,
get
no.
it.
But that's
That's for spousal one. That makes it easy. That you know what, you don't need a lawyer to go in and fill out that documents. but outside of that, because there are a lot of different options available in every country, and so
Mm,
in most of those cases, I would say you'd probably want some immigration help, but because you're from Europe, it's a bit of a different situation, and
mm.
because he's your spouse, does make it easier in that situation.
That was easy, but the one that I'm currently thinking about, that was a couple from Australia, and this is why we bonded at the beginning. They came at the same time like us, but they were both Australian, and they just did everything without support, and it worked well for them. But maybe
Okay.
ours was just a really bad experience that we had. It was yeah, we had to drive to you have to sign some papers and to get that ID card for someone who has a visa, and we had to drive 3 hours north to a different city to then do it there. Whereas you can do it locally, but for some reason you get something allocated, I think. So you get a
Mm.
um, somewhere where there's a free slot to do all the paperwork, and ours unfortunately was like 3 hours away, so we had to book a hotel and just go there and
Oh,
get it. Yeah, a little bit unfortunate and complicated. Yeah.
right, right. And so how about opening up bank accounts or starting a company? Are those quite complicated, or are they pretty straightforward?
That was relatively easy. So
Mhm.
you need everything here starts with the NIF, which is your tax identification number, and nothing works without that. So we applied for
Mm.
that from Australia still, so that that was with the help of that immigration lawyer. But I think there's probably some forms that you can download, so that was relatively easy to get that. And as soon as you have that, everything else is pretty easy. So like opening bank accounts and so on. Um, and then opening our company accounts, we then found an accountant, which is not easy. There's a lot of I don't know. So I went with the third accountant now because the first one just disappeared halfway through. No one signs a contract with you. So you just basically have a conversation. You say, okay, you're my accountant now. Okay, great. You're my clients. That's it. So
Okay.
but then without anything, no legal documents, that accountant then suddenly I just could no longer get hold of her. And then the second accountant did my tax return. My husband had a different accountant, and she messed a detail up. So she didn't say that it was married. And then we had this whole process. Suddenly, we had both had to pay fines and we had to resubmit our tax return. So that obviously was not going well. So now I'm with the third accountant, hopefully third time lucky, see how that works. So that's the like doing the accounts for your company. And then of course that's where I got paid someone to get legal advice. So I'm a nutrition coach, and I just wanted to see if I can get on this NHR scheme, which is reducing your taxes. And for that, I had a consultation to see if I qualify. Unfortunately, I don't. So I don't. So I pay the local taxes. And my husband, he qualifies, so he's a software engineer, and so he can benefit from that, which is obviously lucky for him.
Well, I don't know anything about it, but it just seems interesting that he would qualify for it, but you don't. I guess there
Uh,
must be rules within the job, or maybe sometimes I do think that it just depends on who reads your application and the mood that they're in that day.
I'm not sure. So I had three people that I paid because I just really didn't want to give up because it's just so
Mhm.
attractive, with the NHR scheme. And everyone said the same. So I now ended up, we both ended up being freelancers. So
Mhm.
in the UK, I had a company, so a limited company, but here I'm a freelancer and he's a freelancer as well. So it seems to work even if so like from very low income to very high income, the freelancer seems to be the preferred model to do that. And so
Mm.
far that worked okay, but yeah, remains to be seen. I've only submitted one tax return. Let's see how the others go.
All right. So very important and challenging to find a very good accountant.
Yes.
So that's one thing that that people need to consider. And so if people were on the fence about Portugal, they're not quite sure, what is one or two things or pieces of advice that you would give them?
So I think absolutely it's a great country to live. Um, Definitely check your tax situation. That's an important one. If you're moving here for the taxes, check if you qualify. Because I was very excited to move to Portugal. I told everyone, "Oh, I'm only going to pay 20% taxes," and it's far from it. It's absolutely not what is true. So I still like it here, yeah, but definitely if it's for the taxes, check everything. Um, and then just do your research before you move. Yeah, so if you have the time, and then just go and do a little trip to just see how it feels and talk with people. Go to there's so many networking events where you can get support and ask people. I've seen this over and over again where people just came here for whatever 2 3 months just to see is that for me or not, and just got help with the local community then when I wanted to move here. So it's really a lot about, so everyone is supporting each other here. And this is something unusual. So I didn't really see that in London. I definitely didn't see this in Australia, but yes, it's
Wow.
really quite strong that support that you get. So do you make your contacts of maybe first online and then try to come here to
Mm.
then just talk to people in person and see who can help you.
Absolutely. That's great advice. And I recommend that too. Go and see because you don't know how you're going to feel when you're there. And you might still like the country, but maybe that first city or town isn't the right one because they can vary, even though they're in the same country, that feeling, that energy, the things that you like to do. So, well,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, it is good. But I want to say thank you very much, Christina, for your time. I really appreciate it. And I know everybody got a lot of valuable information. So thank you.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, okay, it was a pleasure. Thanks for inviting me. Take care.